Thank you so much for joining the third part of this class where we are discussing, so what's the application? How are we supposed to look at the Ukraine and a lot of other things going on in our world? I hope you enjoy. I hope you benefit. If you'd like, please subscribe so you can get the next videos as they come out. If you think someone else can benefit, please share with them. And if you give a thumbs up, more people will see this. Thank you so much. Mindset of this talk. How are we supposed to look at these events in the world that seem to not be going in this direction? How can you process them? What do you think will be the way? Rivka?
We should try to trust Hashem and do our part. Believing and knowing that every mitzvah that we do is bringing more light, and just do our small part, and not to think that it's small. It's important. That's all we can do. For me, that's what I think. Well, still I get upset and I still listen to the news. That's what I'm telling myself. Giving myself a pep talk.
Give yourself, okay, good. Well, hopefully you'll listen to yourself. I always say it's good when you teach because at least someone's listening to you. So that's good.
Right.
I hear you. Trust and know that everything we're doing, every small thing is huge. Far bigger than anything else is spirituality. So we want to create this peace. Another piece of godliness, another piece of godliness, another piece of godliness. Anyone else? Any other ways you process this in terms of understanding current events and what's happening in the world and the wars in Ukraine? Rachel?
So yeah, I learned the other day that with every step, I'm continuing what she was saying, but with every step we take to perfect ourselves, to get better, the world become more perfect.
Absolutely.
And I also learned that it's really on our shoulder. The Jewish people are the one that are responsible to perfect the world.
Yes.
So we just must continue and do that, and hopefully. It's impossible to not see what's going around you, but the way that I calm myself is that I will always end with learning something that will uplift me, so I don't stay with whatever I see on the news or whatever. But yeah, to do better ourselves will help the world.
Well, I think that's beautiful what you're saying. And yes, that we understand in our hands is world peace and world perfection. So as Rivka's saying, her small, not small deeds are going to make a difference. Our working on our own movement toward redemption is going to change the movement toward redemption in the world. Absolutely. Absolutely. Anyone else? Any other thoughts on how you can process this talk to help us as we look at the world around us? So I was sort of thinking, I was looking at the Rebbe, again, no, not really different than Rivka or Rachel, but that the Rebbe is saying the world is moving toward peace. And the reason why the world is moving toward peace is because the Jewish people are moving toward peace. Because the rabbis are legally signing documents saying the time of redemption has arrived. The nations of the world are legally committing to peace. I don't believe we're moving backwards. That was 1991. So we must have only been closer now than we were then, some 30 years later, which means the world has to also be closer some 30 years later. So even when we see, so to speak, the facts on the ground of war and destruction, we're not getting the whole story. We're not getting the whole story. Maybe we're not getting the whole story because really the war should have been far more devastating with far more casualties. It should have quickly finished with Russia plowing in and seizing everything. I don't know what part of the story we're not getting, but I know if we got the whole story, it would look very different because we would really see that no, war doesn't rule. sort of like, it's not the exact same thing, but by the Gulf War in 1990, which was this very miraculous war that started in January and was over by Purim. And it was a war that the world thought was going to be World War III, clearly. I mean, the nations of the world gathered together to fight Saddam Hussein. They knew it was World War III. And it was supposed to be this prolonged, protracted, horrible, possibly nuclear war. And and it ended miraculously. And the Lubavitcher wrote a letter then, at the end of the war, speaking about all the miracles that were obvious. And he wrote in that letter that there are far more miracles than people know of. Far, far more greater miracles. Like, we're not even aware of the miracles. Of course, we were aware of the miracles because, like, I don't remember, 50 some Scuds were fired on Israel and not one Jew died because of a Scud. It fell on like gas line, which happened to be shut off the day before. It fell on a building which happened to be empty that day of people. It fell on a building, the whole building collapsed and the people in it came out unscathed. There were some scratches, like crazy. I mean, if you remember, crazy, obvious miracles of God protecting Israel. And like, just to show us that Scuds really are powerful, a few were shot in like Saudi Arabia with massive damage and loss of life. And over 50 were shot in Israel, and somehow, this wasn't the Iron Dome. I'm not talking about no Iron Dome situation. It just, they fell and they just somehow didn't hurt people. Each one had its own story. So we knew the miracles, but the Rebbe wrote so many, like far more greater miracles we don't know. It was very interesting because recently, I don't remember how many years ago, military information was declassified from the Israeli intelligence about the war. And what they found out, they knew then, but now we know now, is that it's so many details, I couldn't even begin to start telling you, that Saddam Hussein had chemical warheads and other warheads. I don't remember what the other one was called. One was chemical warheads and other were other poisonous warheads that they have like shot in these isolated areas of the world. And it takes 10, 20 years later, the poisons are still in the air. And he had these all loaded on planes. And like he had like this whole thing that they were gonna fire them on Israel the second, like he felt they were losing the war. And I don't remember all the details. Like America was trying to give this information over, and it kept on being intercepted. It kept on not going across, and it was all really that he didn't realize, so he didn't give the signal. And then for some completely irrational reason that makes no sense, besides there's a God, Saddam Hussein told them to take all those chemical, and again, I think it was chemical and gas, maybe warheads. I don't remember the second one. It was chemical and then another type, even more dangerous warheads that they took off the planes. They had it already, nuclear warheads, they had it already. And he just gave the command for some irrational reason, take it off the planes. Don't send them. Why? Don't send them. Hey, he's the boss, he said don't send them. They took them all off the plane. And if even one of those planes that already were loaded with all these warheads would have shot on Israel, like the damage would still be there. And we didn't know that. We were clueless. We knew the miracles we saw, and the miracles we saw were amazing enough. But the Rebbe wrote, there's far greater miracles you're just totally clueless of. So we didn't know to be thankful for a situation we didn't know about. And now that this Israeli military papers on the war are declassified, or some of them are declassified, and we're reading it, and it's like, oh wow. So many greater miracles than we even realized. So I'm thinking somehow sort of along these lines, we know what we know, which is very little. Even though we're getting minute by minute reports from like CNN and every other news station, we know very little. We don't know what's really going on. And the Rebbe says what's really going on is the world is moving toward peace. And we're not supposed to get scared by what we see in the news. We're not supposed to believe in the destructive energy that seemingly is ruling, because that destructive energy was diffused about 30 years ago. So we're not supposed to get scared. We're supposed to know the truth, and we're supposed to believe, as Rivka said, as Rachel said, that the power in this world is that walking toward Moshiach, adding in godliness. And every step we make that adds in godliness, the world mirrors that. Just like in the talk, the Rebbe is saying, because the rabbis are signing these documents of the reality of Mashiach, the leaders of the world are saying, we want peace. So when we add and create the reality of Mashiach, we see it in the world. That's the greatest tool we have to combat evil. And thank God we're using the tool. And thank God we are combating evil. And it's becoming completely bankrupt, overtly, obviously devoid of the power it claims to have, because the power is in God's hands and we're walking with it forward. So don't listen to the news. And if you do, don't get scared by it, because we have the power and we're using it to bring peace.